Welcome back to Stream Dreamin'. It's good to have you. Today, we're going to replace the reading light in the back of the Basecamp with the Sirocco II 3-speed oscillating fan. Now, this is an easy install that doesn't require any additional holes. So let's get to it. First things first, you got to remove the existing light. Now, there are just 2 screws and 2 wires, a positive and a negative. As you're pulling the wires, use caution. The edges of that hole can be sharp and cut through the insulation. You don't want to do that. Take your time and just work them out. Now you'll see there is a butt connector on each of these lines. The first one came out. It's that blue thing right there. Now the second one is laying in there horizontally and doesn't really want to come out. So we're going to leave it for now. That is the base for the fan. You'll see lots of holes and those protrusions. Those line up with the bottom of the fan and actually lock it in place. Now we're going to cut these wires. I cut them right as close as I can to the butt connector. In the case of the white wire, where we haven't seen the butt connector yet, I just cut it. All right, I'm going to poke a hole in that piece of paper, stick that paper up there, and mark the existing holes on the paper. So the existing holes have little bumps, kind of like pimples, which make them easy to locate. I just stick the 2 screws through the paper in there. Now that's how the fan is going to mount. That's what it's going to look like. And you can see how that base plate functions. Just slides left to right. All right, with the holes marked, we'll take this piece of paper down and put it on the base plate just like I want it, and then mark it and drill the holes. Unfortunately, the camera was off when I drilled those holes initially, but you'll see here the pilot holes that I drilled are too small for our screws. So we're going to enlarge those holes in just a minute. There we go. Zip, zip, and little wobble, wobble. Now those screws should pass through there easily. Okay, with that done, we're going to enlarge the center hole. Now this is the hole where the wires will pass, and the hole in the base plate just isn't quite big enough. You can see I just drilled through the center hole in my sink cutting board. There we go. Now we got it. All right, this is the adhesive that comes with the fan. I'm going to cut this in half because I don't want it in the center. I don't want to fight it pushing the wires through it. All right, test fit this base plate one more time. Make sure it all lines up, and it does. Now, we'll stick the adhesive on there, just like that. Peel one side, stick it on, just like that. Now, I'm poking these screws through there so that I don't have to battle that as I'm putting it up. Now that's important. I want the screws to be all the way through that base plate so that I can make sure that I'm getting them in the original holes. All right, time to strip the wires. Stripping the wires isn't hard, but you can see how I put my hand between the roof and the tool. I don't want that tool to go slamming up there and mark the aluminum skin. Now as I'm doing this white cable, the vibration and tugging on it pulled that butt connector through. So I'm going to cut it off. No sense having 2 connections up there. And then strip that wire, and then after stripping the wires, the wire strands are in there just straight. If you give them a nice little twist, they tighten up and it makes it easier to slide them in the butt connectors. All right, now we've got to hook up the fan. This is pretty easy. Again, there are just 2 wires, a positive and a negative. The wires that come from the factory are marked, or at least there's a flag on the positive side. Don't worry about it. Don't try to line it up or anything because you're going to cut that off and you can see clearly which is which. So just attach the 2 wires with the nuts. Stick it on through the eyelet, put the nut on, get it started, and then use the socket to get it tight. Easy. All right. Now we're going to cut off the excess wire. Then I'm going to tie a little knot on the positive wire. There we go. Now, these are very tiny wires. They're smaller than the wires we're going to hook them onto. So I'm going to strip off twice as much of the insulation as I normally would. And then twist those wires, give them a good twist to tighten them up, and then bend the wire over on itself and give it another twist. All right, there we've got the insulation off. Here's the first twist just to tighten them up. And then I will fold that wire over on itself. Just a quick bend, boom, just like that. See how I made that kind of fishhook look? And then I pinched it together. Now I'm going to give it another twist. I did that because these wires are so small. I want to make sure that they get a good connection with that butt connector. So now I crimp that butt connector and I give the wire a little tug. It doesn't come out. Happy day. Now apply a little heat to the shrink wrap element of the butt connector. And now that plastic is shrunk wrap around the wire, giving it even more security and keeping it weather tight. Not that that's an issue up in the ceiling, but it is nice to have the extra adhesion. All right, one more. Little shrinky, and voila. There we go. All right. Now we'll take the fan back to the rear of the trailer. Now, see those two nuts? You've got to put those nuts in that base plate. Those nuts receive the screws that hold the fan to the base plate, that actually lock it in place. All right, slip the wires through our center hole. Make sure you got the right hole. Stick your screws through the holes that we drilled and get them started in the factory holes on the ceiling of the Basecamp. Okay, now we can, with the screws in place, put that up there, get it tight, zip. Yes. Now those screws are just sucking that base plate to that aluminum. Don't try to over tighten it or you'll strip those holes, and you don't want to do that. All right, now I'm test fitting these screws into the nuts that we put in the back of that base plate, just to make sure they thread in there properly, because if we get the fan up there and can't get those threaded, everything we've done to this point is for naught, and I have to undo it, and I really don't want to have to cut that adhesive and start over. But the nuts are in place and we're good to go. Now, attaching the fan is just a little bit tricky because you're kind of trying to hold the fan with one hand and do everything else with the other. The wires don't always cooperate quite the way you want them to go, and well, there's got to be a better way, and there is. So this rear screen is going to become a fan carrier in the short run. So I'm rolling it up a little bit more loosely, snap it in place, and then I'm going to use it as a cradle for the fan. Here we go. Just kind of stick the fan in there. Now, the way it's positioned here, it's always going to be a little bit top heavy. You can play around with that. If you really take some time, you could probably come up with a better cradle than I did, but you get the idea. You just need something to kind of hold that fan, take the weight off. I can balance it easy. Now, I'm positioning these crimpers exactly where I want them so that when I pinch or when I squeeze it, it pinches the wire securely. There we go. Give it a little tug, and that's secure. And I double check to make sure that I got the negative wire to the negative terminal. All right, now we're hooking up the positive side. Crimp, squeeze, and voila. A little heat, get that shrink wrap shrunk. You do have to rotate it around, but again, it's super easy. A heat gun is ideal. I just don't have a heat gun, so I do have this little fire starter, and that's what I used. You could use a match, you could use a Bic lighter, you could use a heat gun, just about anything. All right, now we're just pushing these wires back up into the ceiling, get them out of place. You'll have to push one butt connector through at a time, and then just work those wires up there. Easy, easy. And put the fan in place. Now remember, all of those protrusions from that base plate go into the fan, and then the fan slides and it locks in place. There we go. Now that is secure. We've just got to put these 2 screws in, one in the front and then one in the back. And those screws again go into the nuts that are on the underside of that base plate. Don't forget to put those nuts in, or you'll be hating life at this point. Okay, the fan is secure, the wires are connected, and we hit the power, and look at that. Blade spinning. Happy day. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? Easy install, and man, this fan blows a good bit of air. Doesn't suck a whole lot of power. It looks good. It looks like it came from the factory. It's not a clunky install. We didn't have to drill any additional holes or run any additional wires. Now, if you're going to do this project, I would budget an hour. Give yourself some time. Make it easy. Don't stress. And since recording this video, I've had the chance to use this fan. And holy cow, what a difference it makes. It is so nice when you come back in the afternoon in early spring or summer when it's warm inside the base camp. It truly does make a difference. All right, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with somebody, and subscribe if you haven't already. I look forward to seeing you next time on Stream Dreamin'.